Let's take a look at this. We can see we have a radius of 10 here. So we have a radius of 10 and we have a right triangle. So if this is a right triangle and this is isosceles, that means that this is going to cut this angle of 90 degrees in half, right? If this needs to be 9 degrees, this is 45. Again, if this is a right triangle isosceles, this is going to be cut in half here. So 45 and 45, and so to get a 45 degree, to get a total of 90 degrees in quadrant 2 and also in quadrant 3 would leave this with 45. So 45 and 45, we're going to cut it right in half here. 1 pi over 4, 2 pi over 4, this is 3 pi over 4, 4 over 4, and this is 5 pi over 4, just to keep this in mind. Now, this is really going to test our understanding of the quadrants and positives and negatives. All-star trig class, that tells me in quadrant 1 we have positive and positive. It looks like we're only talking about this coordinate right now for p, so I don't need to worry about tangent. Over here we have negative, positive, 2 negatives down in quadrant 3, and then positive, negative over here. Now, as I look through these, I'm examining these, I'm going to come up and figure out what is the answer, and then I'm going to evaluate these later on. So I want to know what is the answer here. So I'm going to go back and just do all the work. Okay, so I know that right here is going to be, and let's see here, we're using 5 pi, we're using 1 pi, and we're using 3/4 pi. So I'm going to write down what these are. This is radical 2 over 2, both positive. Over here, it's negative for the first and positive for the second. Down here, it's negative for the second and negative for the first and negative for the second. Okay, so I've come up with the coordinates for pi over 4, for 3 pi over 4, and for 5 pi over 4. Now, right here, we're working at 3 pi over 4. Now, to figure out this coordinates, remember, we're no longer just in the unit circle. So I need to take that value times a radius of 10. So I know that this coordinates here, I forgot about us having the option of even having down here of having options A through D. I would say, okay, we're going to take 10 times, here's the coordinate, I'm going to take 10 times negative radical 2 over 2. And this is just the cosine portion. The 10 over 2 would reduce to 5, and I'd have negative 5 radical 2. Then I would do the exact same thing. I would take 10 times this quantity and I get positive 5 radical 2. So if this was not multiple choice, there's my answer. Now I need to look down below and I need to find out which one of those is going to match up. So let's just start with the cosines. We know I want our cosines to be negative. Now this, what is the cosine of pi over 4? The cosine of pi over 4 is a positive, and then if I take a positive times a positive, I'm not getting the negative. The cosine of 3 pi over 4, the cosine of 3 pi over 4 is negative, and if I take this negative value times a negative, I'd get a positive, but I want a negative. If I take negative 10 times, now it's pi over 4, times positive value, I'm going to end up with a negative. So it could be that, before I do anything more, it could be this one. And then down here I have a positive times, well, 5 pi over 4 for the cosine, 5 pi over 4 for the cosine is negative, so a negative pi times a positive is in fact going to be a negative. I'm looking for a negative. So it could be C or D. I have a 50% chance of getting it right. It could be those. Now let's see, am I able to decide just based on the y's and not doing any more work. So notice that my y I want to be positive. In fact, it needs to be positive 5 radical 2. Okay, let's check here. So if I take the sine of pi over 4, okay, the sine of pi over 4 is positive, times a positive 10 gives me a positive. Okay, that could be it. But the sine of 5 pi over 4, which is down here, the sign is negative, and if I take a negative times a positive, I get a negative, and notice I want a positive. So without doing any more work, I can eliminate just based on my understanding of using the All-Star Trig class and be able to identify the correct answer. C is the correct answer for number 22. That was tricky.